instructions when he's going to be, so he knows to throw his net.
It would be better if we shut the video off.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's 9:30, and I would like to call the meeting to order. But before we start our agenda, I would like to welcome the second class of grade 9 students here this morning. As our CAO, Mr. Joshi, said, if you want to watch the meeting later, or if you weren't able to be here today, you can always watch it online. We do record all of our meetings, so there's different ways that you can attend the council meeting, or at least see what's going on. So as you can see, most of council is here today, except for one councillor who is on Zoom with us, Councillor Horvis, and we do have our CAO and our office manager also with us today. We also have our protective services officer who's going to be doing the presentation a little bit later. I'm not sure if he'll still be here when he gets up to speak or not. So with that, I would like to call for the resolution for the adoption of the agenda, please.
Resolve the agenda for the meeting be adopted as circulated with the noted additions. Immediate other business, 6.6, Next Generation 911 Authority Service Agreement, and 6.7, snow clearing.
Thank you. Can I have a mover? Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Boulanger seconds. Any other additions for the agenda? Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
I'm wondering if we couldn't have a discussion about a budget meeting schedule at some point? I just didn't see it on there, so I didn't know if it was in your report.
We could certainly have a discussion on it after that.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for members of council? Hearing and seeing none, call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. The next item on our agenda is confirmation of the minutes, and we have one meeting minutes from February the 27th. If I could have the resolution, please.
Resolve the minutes of February 27th, 2024 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Strang, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any discussion, corrections, amendments to the minutes from our last meeting? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Okay, we have no the delegation we have is sitting before us. So I was just going to mention, and I know Rita knows this, before you guys are here till just before 10 again today. Okay, so what we'll try and do is we'll try and kind of slow down the meeting about 10 to 10 in case there are any questions. But while we're chatting here, if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll address whatever your query might be. So. Okay, communications for action. The first item we have is communications for action, Association of Manitoba Municipalities, Women in Municipal Government reception, and that was at the beginning of April. And if, I know I will be going. Councillor Strang, are you interested in going to that, if you're going to Brandon?
Yes, I would be.
Okay.
I think it's open to everybody, also not just women, too.
I wasn't sure.
Everybody. And usually last year they had a breakfast and there was a charge for it. But this year it looks like, I don't know, there's not that much specific information on it.
No.
At this point, there isn't. And if they usually include the breakfast, I don't think there's a charge this time.
No, this one's at 5 o'clock, so I don't think it is. I think everything's changed up. But anyways, yes, I would be interested. Thank you very much.
Anybody else interested? I didn't realize the way I read it. I thought it was, because I think last time when I went, it was mainly women. There were a couple of gentlemen in the crowd, but it was mainly the women. So is anybody else interested, whoever is going to Brandon in April? Not seeing any hands go up, so I guess it's Sandra and I. Deepak, are you going to join us, or
I'll let,
Heather know?
since this is more in government related with elected officials,
Okay,
I'll choose not to attend.
okay, perfect.
What we have is a resolution to move this forward, Madam Mayor, and that's resolved, Mayor Thiebelkorn and Councillor Strang be authorized to attend the Association of Manitoba Municipalities Women in Municipal Government reception at the Keystone Centre, Brandon, Manitoba, on April 10th, 2024.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Vazzaroj, Councillor Spicer seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried.
And as we get more information as to what's happening at that event, we'll share that with you.
Okay, thank you. I've lost my agenda here, so. New and other business. There is a subdivision for the development agreement. If you could walk us through that, please, Deepak.
Yes, Madam Mayor. What this is the development agreement for subdivision S22 2980, which is off of Rebec, and what it was that the developer had brought up some additional items that they wanted to be addressed as part of this, and that was discussed with council. There were two things. One was to make sure that although they provided access to the subdivision for emergency purposes off of Dunning, they were still going to make Rebec as a main entrance, and they just wanted to make sure that the development agreement reflected that. Raleigh, sorry, not Rebec, sorry, Raleigh. I think it's written as Raleigh, so. And so that was the change on the development agreement. The other request that they had was, and this was a policy change the council made, which was to allow for some circumstances where a developer will pay 50% in the first, at the initial, 50% of the development fees at the initial approval of the development agreement, and then 50% after 180 days. And so both of those changes have been made. The development agreement that's been provided for councils in advance, those areas were highlighted in yellow. And what we have brought forward is, since this is a development agreement, an agreement between the municipality and the developer, we need to bring it back to council for any changes that have occurred. And due to those changes, we're bringing it further for approval.
Thank you for that. I was just wondering if you couldn't bring up the map so the students could see kind of where this property is and kind of what we're talking about. Most of these students may not be aware because this is in the River East School Division, I believe, this property, so.
The property is right here that we're talking about. So what it does is it has access, the main access is coming off of Raleigh right over here. And there was an additional access off of Minkus. But Minkus has been turned into more of a active transportation path, access into the subdivision, but it does have some bollards there so that it can be used for emergency access. The subdivision, as you know, goes in there and has lots, 2-acre lots built in here with a road.
Thank you for that. And just for the students, this property is south of Lockport, so it's closer to the edge of our municipality at the south end, so.
So that gives a better perspective. Lockport is up there. This property is close to our transfer station down here.
Yeah, it's not far from the Dunning across the floodway and just a little north, so. Okay, if we have a resolution to move this forward, if you could bring it forward, please.
Whereas subdivision file number S22-2980 requires a development agreement as a condition of subdivision, and whereas council had passed a resolution of 2023-512 to execute the signing of the development agreement, and whereas the developer requested amendments to the agreement, and whereas council has agreed to the amendments, and therefore be it resolved, Council agrees to execute the development agreement with 1013461 Manitoba Limited.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, Councillor Vazzarolo, seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, 6.2 on our agendas is the Crime Stopper signage update, and I believe that our CEO was going to give us an update, or was it Tyler was going to give us an update on the signage?
Tyler's going to participate in the conversation.
Okay.
And I've asked Tyler to come and talk. This was discussed at the last council meeting in council, and I've asked to bring it back. I know there was some discussion and there was a lot of requests as to putting up these Crime Stopper signage throughout the municipality. And there was a bit of discussion at council about placing these at all the major entrances into the municipality. What I thought was important was that when I got back from holidays and I had a discussion with our Protective Services Officer, Tyler Freeman there, I felt that it was important to have a further discussion on these Crime Stopper signs, because I think I understand the intent of council, but I need to advise council that if we execute as per council's direction, what this will require is a considerable amount of approvals from the provincial government, because many of those entrances that are coming in are provincial highways. And getting access and ability to place signs, we're looking at months and months of delays. I think what the intent of council was to be able to make sure that these signs were strategically located throughout the RM so that we can make sure that they can be, they can remind people visiting the communities as well as the RM that this is a Crime Stopper community and there are things to take into consideration as to the signs. My recommendation to council for consideration in discussions with our Protective Services Officer is that we could take a look at putting these signs on municipal roads. That way we don't have to go through. We can put them into some municipal roads and we can increase the amount of signage, certainly in areas that are of higher concentration of residency, such as East Selkirk, Lockport, South Lockport, those types of areas, Lebo, Grand Marais, those types of areas where we can put them, but place them not on provincial roads, but on municipal rights of way where we have the authority and we don't have any major issues. The costs for those signs, Tyler was able to get that just as of this morning, although he had been requesting for the last 2 weeks for the information, and that's $40 per sign. And so that's why I asked to bring this forward back to council, because I know council had made a decision in a direction that they gave the Protective Services Officer when I wasn't here, but I'm recommending that council reconsider this.
Go ahead, Councillor Vazzarowicz.
Is that, Tyler, is that per sign plus post?
That'll be plus post, we'll have to provide the post and installation.
Councillor Boulanger.
That, I was thinking the same thing as Mr. Administrator, that the signs should be placed in an area that we have access to, like our municipal property, so I would concur.
Well, and in discussion the other day, when I was speaking briefly with Deepak, we kind of said that, you know, we kind of know where we have some issues with crime, so maybe those are the areas that we start off with. Like, I know, you know, in the South End, it was just on the news the other day, a stolen vehicle was found in our municipality at the South End. I'm not exactly sure where, they didn't say, it just said St. Clements, and I know that, you know, there are certain areas that probably are more prone to break-ins and things like that. So the other area that I thought of was the cottage country. If we could put, you know, on our municipal roads before we get to 500, before they cross over to the cottage country. So go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
I can't remember, did we arrive at a number of how many signs we plan on putting up?
No, we didn't. We just kind of said that they
Okay.
should be kind of on the major entrances into the municipality, the highways. So maybe that's not such a good idea if we want to put them at all of them, because it would be quite a
Yes.
cost. So,
I'm just wondering how many we
yeah, I
should
don't.
have.
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer, and then Councillor Boulanger.
Yeah, I understand that it's not user-friendly on highways. So, no, if we're looking at municipal roads in the high population, and maybe as the mayor has brought out some recent statistics, I guess, would be another one. Went to a meeting yesterday and saw a burnt-out car on the side of the road. So, I think what I would suggest is now that we're clarifying our position, maybe you could bring back a map and show us your recommended locations.
We certainly can.
Tyler, or go ahead, Rob, and then I'll just get Tyler to wrap up.
Just further what I said about municipal properties, which I agree, if there are key spots that we really want to get signs on provincial areas that we need permission, maybe we can get those few put in motion now, like just get it started. I know it takes a long time to get approvals, but get the signs up now where we want to put them, show us on a map, but at the same time, if we put just a couple locations that do need provincial approval, sort of get it in motion now so that if it takes a year from now, at least it's in motion.
Right, yeah. Tyler, do you have anything else you want to add to wrap up this discussion?
Yeah, also something to consider is those signs are fairly small, so you don't want to be traveling at a fairly high speed, you'll probably go right by it, right, so that's something to consider as well. That's pretty much the only thing I want to directly touch on. The actual signs, it was pretty much covered by council and CAO. And part of the reason I wanted to talk about this topic is to discuss the one that was mentioned about the community entrance signs, to place them on a lot of the entrance signs. Pleased to announce that we actually got that ball rolling really good with the community entrance signs now. So I've been working with Sean from Public Works and also getting him to identify all the areas, actually get the permits going, the application process has started. We talked with highways and they know what we're doing. But before we really start filing the applications, I wanted to go over the actual layout of these signs and what my opinion is what they should look like. So I don't know if we can go to that next point if we're done with current subjects.
Yeah, I appreciate the Protective Services Officer's enthusiasm to move to the next item, but we haven't finished the first item
Yeah,
yet.
no, that's my
Finish
fault.
that first.
Okay.
So if council is fine with, I don't think we need a resolution at this point, just that we'll report back on sign locations and we'll take a look at where there are some strategic locations, and if we move forward, then we can move on to the next item, which is,
Yes, but before we do that, I think that class has to leave very shortly, so I was just gonna see if Rita or any of the students have any questions or comments that they'd like to leave with us or ask us today. Anything, Rita, that you?
Tyler?
Yes.
You're talking about layout of the sign. Now, the sign has already been done up. Are you talking about the actual sign itself and changing the layout?
No, that sign is provided to the municipality and that's the layout of the sign that could go away.
Okay,
So what I was getting at was it's fairly small, I think it's 18 by 24. So if it's on an entrance sign that you're doing 100 coming into the RM,
it needs to be bigger.
you won't be able to read it.
That's
Like
right.
you'll be able to know what it is, but you won't be able to get the number.
That's right.
Right.
949.
And so, are there any existing Crime Stopper signage at all in your,
I don't know that there is. I think
I
at
don't-
one time there used to be, but I think they're disappeared. Pardon me?
The other program.
COPP?
Oh, COPP program.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah, because part of the municipality had the Citizens on Patrol
Yes.
program.
Yeah.
So those are the signs we did have up. So,
and Tyler, your official title is?
Manager of Protective Services.
Okay, thank you. They have to do an assignment for me, so I'm taking.
Oh, so you have to make those notes.
so the Manager of Protective Services is responsible for fire protection, emergency management, bylaw enforcement.
Right. Yes. I received an email that the Interlake Regional Health Authority is supposed to be attending
Yeah, they weren't able to attend today, so
Oh, shoot.
they're gonna get back with new dates.
Okay.
And you have one more class coming after
Yeah,
the Easter
it'll be
break,
the,
right?
I believe it's April 9th is your,
16.
No,
it'll
16.
be the 16th?
Yes, we're not here on the 9th. That
Okay.
is our spring conference.
But good thing I asked because that's what I have as a date.
That would be the usual date, but because the spring conference falls there, we've moved it back a week to the 16th.
Okay, then I'll have to, we're going on a tour of the Selkirk RCMP detachment right away.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna stop at Tim Hortons, get some donuts, some
No
ice
way.
caps, and then we're going to the RCMP detachment. Possible Human has opened up tours now for schools,
Okay,
and part of that tour is the mural that I painted.
right,
Yeah,
right.
so
And
I'll
that
have
is
to-
an awesome mural. I took a bunch of pictures when they had the unveiling of it and council looked at them here. I
Good.
forwarded them on and we had a look at all of them, so.
Yeah, our school's Mama to a Swim committee is going to the board meeting in Selkirk next week to show them some pictures of the mural and another project we did that was in the local paper. When was that project in the paper? Was that last one? When we did that big map of Puzzle of Canada? Was it last one? Yeah.
That was a very interesting morning also because I attended that and I actually showed these guys the map and
Yeah.
some of the things that were going on.
It was really good, and got
It
the whole
was.
school involved.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Very good.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'll have to tell Possible Human that we gotta change that date of our tour next month.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Good thing I asked. All right, grade nines, we got a bus to catch to Tim Hortons.
I assume you're taking some donuts to the RCMP as well?
I asked him if he wanted, and he said, no, thank you. He rubbed his belly.
Thank you all very much for coming, and you know what, if you ever have a question, just direct it to the office or one of the counselors, and we'll try and help you with whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, I'll show them the website and show them how they can leave messages for you. Yeah,
Great,
for sure, thank you.
thanks, Rita.
Okay.
Have a fun day, everyone.
Yes. Okay, let's go, guys.
Yes, we're still outside. It's really interesting.
Before you can't move me back, wait till you mentioned not being able to see. Bigger signs of the few entrances.
Yes.
Thank you.
Not the Crime Stopper ones.
No, we're talking about.
No, Dave, I think
He's
it's
talking about community
Talk
entrance.
about the
community entrance ones or Crime Stopper?
Crime Stoppers.
Oh, no, not, I don't think we have a choice of making the Crime Stopper signs any larger.
We don't?
I don't think so, we can look into it for sure, but we can look.
I'm listening to your comments and it makes complete sense, like, you know, the small people really don't pay attention to them.
Yes.
So wondered if we made up in some strategic areas, like bigger signs,
Yeah.
I don't know what council thinks.
Yeah.
When you mentioned it, it makes sense, you know, I don't know.
I can ask for sure.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Okay, so I think we're done with the Crime Stopper signs and we'll move on to the community entrance signs. So Tyler, you've done some work on that. And if you could report
Sure.
on that, or if Deepak's gonna.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so basically, I know I tied the last two items together, and the reason why is one, I had council speaking about the signs leading the entrance. I already knew that, you know, behind closed doors, we got this project started again, and I kind of really made it adamant that we need to get this completed as soon as we can, the entrance signs. So the process, like Deepak was mentioning, with the amount of permits for just simply the entrance signs is pretty intensive. For one sign, it's like 10 pages of paperwork. So to put the community or the Crime Stoppers with that or on a provincial sign, my opinion was let's really shift our focus on these entrance signs primarily and get the Crime Stoppers as well going, but let's put all of our, you know, eggs in the basket with the entrance signs. Get these signs up, we can put them up anywhere you want on RM roads for now, once we identify them. But I got kind of excited about the entrance signs. I spoke with Sean and Kevin Sean started the communication with actual permits with the province. We started identifying all the entrance areas. There's roughly 12 of them, and identified what is currently standing in the URM. So my idea with this, we can simply put, you know, the large green signs that say East Selkirk or St. Clements. You know, we can do those, which is fine, if that's what council wants. I personally see a bigger vision with it. I know if you travel down, and I'm sure we all know this, but you travel north on 59, and once you get into Alexander, they have a really beautiful big sign, wooden post, handwritten, and it's like, I don't know, maybe like 14 feet wide. And it's really nice, right? And you have signs like that throughout the area. There's one in Tyndall, as you come into Garson. So that's what I envision with the community entrance signs, something big, more artistic, and something that people actually really look at and kind of be happy about and be proud about. So that's my vision with it. I've already directed Taylor, our communications officer, our rec. She's very creative, very artistic, so I asked her if she'd be interested in starting to put some designs together, just on paper for now. And she's very excited to do that, so she's already doing sketches, and then once we get ideas of what it would look like, we bring to council. But that's my goal, is to get, with council's approval, big, awesome looking signs throughout the area. So the process will be intense, but I think if we do it, we do it right.
Comments from council, Rob, Scott, and Sandra.
You know, in 59 here, the caution deer signs, which are quite robust and large.
Yep.
Are you talking that dimension or not quite that big?
And that's the thing, we can, like, if you look at our big main entrances in the RM, we're talking about, you know, northeast, south, and west. I think put something big like that, at least 4 locations, like the big primary areas. And then we can scale the signs down to the more smaller ones, like up to 212 or Birds Hill Road type of thing as you're coming from East St. Paul. But I think we should go as big as we can on the big parts of the highway.
Yeah, like
And then we can-
44, 59.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically each way, and then go from there. There's also the potential, like I travel from where I live just outside of Broken Head, 44 in the RM office out there. And if you come where I live, they have a Beaujeu sign in the farmer's field that must be like 60 feet long. And 60 by 20, like it's huge. But you see it from miles away and it's really, really nice looking. And then as you pull in, they have more additional massive signs like that. So how we actually, you know, do it, I'm not sure. But I think we should look at that anyway. Whether that be just simply our entrance signs on a PR highway, or for example, as you come to the RM traveling westbound down 44, once you come into 44 right where the Bodner pit is there, like that's technically right where our entrance starts, and we have that one sign there that's the blue metal sign with the RM logo in the middle.
Yeah.
But if you travel further down west, like 300 meters, there's massive farmers fields there. Why not approach them and say, can we put something there? Because then it's a different type of approval, right? Doesn't directly involve the highways if we're on private property. We would have to go into our zone and our own bylaws. So there's so many different options. It just really depends on what council sees for the vision.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I like the idea, and I think you kind of answered my question well, it was a question statement. I think we have to be open to different possibilities, because highways will have their, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do.
Right.
So that'll be part of it, but I kind of like the idea of something just different than a big green and white sign.
Right.
I agree with that. Now, the other thing that comes up is you discussed 12, we have 12 currently.
Roughly, yes.
Does that include something on this side of the river by the Blue Bridge? Okay.
Yep.
Because that's been discussed, I just wanted to make sure that we had that one in there.
Yeah, and to me, I think that that's obviously a very popular spot coming over from Selkirk, right?
Okay,
So, yeah.
thank you.
Go ahead, ahead, Sandra.
A lot of my questions weren't answered too, but I totally agree with everything that you're saying there. The 59 one, I would put that one up already because it was there and it's gone. So to me, that one we already had approval for.
Yeah, we just have to get new approval for it. I already asked the province.
No forgiveness that we already had one there.
No, they're very, very sticky with their permits and whatnot, because I asked them, I said, there's a sign that was smashed out, can you guys replace it first? And they said, no, file new permits and seek application.
That's ridiculous.
So I said, okay.
So what is the cost of one of those permits? Because I'm sure they're gonna charge you.
To be honest, I don't know,
Okay.
yeah.
Do a group
They'll
bundle
do cost.
permit?
But,
I don't know.
yeah, and that's the thing, working with Kevin and Sean was once we get, and I haven't went into too much detail with Kevin about it, I let him know my thoughts. But I think once we get like ideas of what we envision the sign to look like, then we show prototypes as per sketches and designs, and then we look at, okay, is it even realistic, right? Like, for example, when I was talking with Taylor last week about it, she had some big ideas and mentioned, yeah, you know, we can do a really pretty one and put some limestone and this and that. I said, well, there's regulations you have to meet if a car smashes into, right? Can't be made out of solid limestone. So once we figure out the layout and the materials with Sean and Kevin, then we can show council, here's what we're thinking. And once you guys kind of determine what your vibe is and what you're anticipating, then we'll take those designs and take them to the province and say, here's what we want to do, how do we get there? Right? And if they're giving council, look, can we look at private property as well? It's right next to PR Road or PTA Road.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the private property one.
Yeah.
You will have to go through the planning board because I know we have those
Yeah.
realtors that they're oversized, that
Yeah.
should not be in our areas and.
For sure. Yes, and that's the thing. Once we get the look of it, then we'll do the legwork and see what we need to do, and if we have to modify it, at least we have the idea.
Well, see, and I guess, and we've talked about this many times sitting around the table here, is the one coming off the Blue Bridge into our municipality. Like, some people think they're still in Selkirk, and we would like something huge there. But, you know, if you have to move it a bit away from the bridge, and I'm thinking where that road goes to the river there. The problem that I have there is that with the floodwaters, it may not last, so you really need to have something sturdy there and pick a good spot for
Right.
where it would, and especially if it's a very large decorative sign
Yeah.
as well as welcome to St. Clements, so.
You would just need higher posts there with the sign higher up. As long as your posts are in the ground with cement or whatever, then the sign higher up should be safe. The water will just flow by it. And there's not much ice there.
But there's
Not
lots
there,
of
no.
deadfall there that go through. Once
That's
the river
right.
washes up, like
Yeah.
there's massive trees
Yeah.
that float through there.
So
And
that's just
also
something to
hiker
keep.
property.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
Well, I just think, we do need that, but as the road goes up, I think we'll have to have it there because when the ice moves, nothing stops it. Even
Right.
those chunks in the trees, so it doesn't matter what you do. I don't care what kind of post you get in, it's gonna be bent over or broken, or I think it would have to be where the road starts to go up to the bridge, because the water never gets up that high.
right.
I just think that's all, anywhere in the flats,
Yeah,
I think we're gonna be fixing it all the time. But-
yeah, no, and I do agree, like those trees are scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
But
sorry, Deepak.
I think it's a great idea, like, let's do it right, nice big sign.
Yeah.
I'm fully in agreement with that. But
Yeah.
anyway, okay, thank you.
I got one
Cheers.
comment and then I'll let you finish up, okay? I guess me looking at it, when I come on the bridge, you know how that guardrail is on the south side of the road? I always think that right at the end of that guardrail would be the perfect spot,
Right.
because it's still pretty high there, but then again, how, you know, like you have to get highways permission and everything there. That's, I don't know, when I come off the bridge, that's where I think it should go all the time, so. Go ahead, Deepak, sorry.
As mentioned earlier, Madam Mayor, this has been discussed multiple times at this council table, and one of the things that we had discussed, and I will remind council, is that as the province has identified replacement of the Blue Bridge, we have determined that the sign for entrance to identification for coming into the Arm of St. Clements would be addressed as part of that design, which would make the best opportunity to get any kind of comments or any kind of opportunity to make the right kind of change for the province of Manitoba. At this point, whatever sign you put up is going to be torn down as part of the construction works.
That's true.
And we do have that sign that we know that's already on the highway property, like the, going up, when you come to Selkirk there,
Oh, at the steam plant
the
corner.
steam plant at the corner there.
Yeah,
So again, agreement with Hydro, we put something there, right?
well, I
Like
guess in
replacing something big.
one or two of our discussions, we thought it should be closer to the bridge.
I do agree, for sure.
Yeah,
There's-
but we'll have to kind of wait and play it out and see what happens, so.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on this? Go ahead, Sandra.
And is there any more discussion on the Blue Bridge, that we were creating a committee or anything pushing forward on that?
The agreement was that an administrative committee would be created initially, and I would be advising, and then along with that would be, so the direction from the two councils was for the two administrations to talk more. So we're still waiting for the province to give a firm deadline as to when to move forward.
Go ahead, Councilor Boulanger.
And I did have a conversation with Coffee and a couple others, and they weren't aware, but I guess it's the CAO and Mr. of a possible committee coming together.
Okay.
So
I thought the
maybe it's
CEO
something
had
that's not,
talked it over
I would
with
have
the
thought,
council.
but maybe we
That was
should,
the impression I was given. I'll double check with
Okay.
that CAO.
Okay, anything else on the signs and,
Because I did share the letter from the CAO with council that I received.
yeah, here, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so if we want to move on to the development plan and zoning bylaw amendments, if there's nothing else for Tyler?
Yes, we're good. There'll be an in-camera item that I'll ask Tyler to come back.
Okay.
So the next item on the agenda, development plan zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you, Tyler. And so what this is it came forward at the last council meeting again. There were some additional questions that Madam Mayor and some council members had, and it was kind of laid over until Madam Mayor had a chance to talk it over with me, and we've had a discussion on this. And the intent here is that we're asking for Red River Planning to begin the process for review. We know that these lands that are sitting in south of East Selkirk here off of CIL Road and Henderson Highway, a good majority of those lands are not suitable as industrial lands. Also, some of those lands are also hydro lands, and it skews the the perception of the available lands for industrial purposes. Where we've got a public works yard on there, as well as we've got hydro lands and some lands, as you can see on the screen here, roll number 300-556 is at the back end, and so lands in front that are fronting a road would be developed well in advance of that. So even to think that those lands are immediately available is quite a stretch. So what we felt was that a report in discussions with Red River Planning was that a report coming forward from council on a resolution asking for that review will open the door and will give an indication to the province of Manitoba as well as to the Red River Planning District that these lands are not the intent of council to be used for industrial purposes by the virtue of the type of lands they already are, and they're not suitable. Some of these lands have been designated this way since 1973. So that was the intent, and so we're not asking for a change, we're not asking to change specifically to residential or commercial, we're just saying this needs to be reviewed and it needs to be done as part of the next major development plan.
Go ahead, Councilor Spicer.
So just further to that then, that doesn't mean that some of them still couldn't end up being designated similarly to what they are.
Correct.
and change some of the others.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
That was gonna be my comment, is that that particular land is already designated industrial. I know the landowner would like to have a mix of residential and potentially small industrial. So I don't want that to be taken away, but at least it's still there.
Yes.
That's my,
This doesn't take any development rights away from existing landowners at this point. What it's saying is, this needs to be reviewed, because as you can see on the screen right now on the map, the triangle piece there is the public works yard, along with our lagoon, and those lands will never be used for industrial purposes, it's for municipal purposes. Along with that, lands to the north of there, there's lands that are hydro lands. This doesn't even show all of that, that are hydro lands,
yeah.
that are to the north, if you can see in the blue there. And those lands will never, one of the main reasons is that they were there because of the steam plant, but they'll never be used for industrial purposes because they're in flood-prone lands and they're never going to be developed. So they shouldn't even be considered as part of the acreage of the amount of industrial lands available to the RA.
Not at all.
No, they shouldn't, but they are being used that way.
Change it.
Yes.
Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Once again, further to what you're saying, this is going to be a contradictory question, is my last one. Let's use the railroad, there's two parts to this. Let's use the railroad tracks as an example. Okay, so the report says that at one point in time it was used to haul coal to this plant. Well, we all know that's probably not going to happen again. We also know that the existing use of the tracks is basically just parking cars on it. So that's a good question. So could those be designated as hazard lands? So then this is all coming down to the way that the province and or river planning deals with employment lands. Okay, so if you have so many acres of it, you don't get any more. That's basically what's happening here. So the real question is what, and I think that's what this is asking for, is what is these lands really supposed to be designated as? And I think I brought this up before, but I'm not exactly sure. But if we were looking at our public works yard and our lagoons, for example, is there not an option to have those designated as public utility?
Correct.
For example. So they're not industrial anymore, they're public utility. It's very unlikely it's going to change from public utility at any time. You know, unless we're deciding to move our end shop, which I doubt is in the works. We're definitely not really planning on moving our lagoons, I don't think. So this is kind of what we're looking at here is it's 1971, let's get them designated for what they really are. And then that possibly changes how industrial employment lands are looked at in the municipality.
Correct.
Well, I guess the comment that I have on it, and, you know, we're kind of talking here about, like, when is this going to be done? Because if we're looking at waiting until the new development plan is done, that could be a number of years. And I think Deepak for sure will remember, and some councillors will remember, that the last time the development plan was done and submitted to the province, it took them 2 or 3 years to decide that it was okay and approve it. So you're looking at a number of years down the road. Now, if we want to move this process forward sooner, we have to approach it in a different manner, I think. And I'll leave that for Deepak to maybe speak a little bit about, but first I'll see what Rob has to say.
We talked about this before, about getting changes made and paying a contractor or a, I'm not sure the name of the development.
Consultant.
There you go, that's the name I'm looking for. Consultant, and we would pay because we could get it done speedy and significantly quicker. To me, in these situations, it's worth spending the money getting stuff. I completely agree that we will be years away from any progressive movement or work done by you-know-who. So if we want to progress as an RM, if we want to get these issues dealt with, I have no problem putting my hand up, spending money on getting this done sooner than later.
Go ahead, Deepak. Oh,
I could certainly report back on this, but this is getting it done sooner than later, in the sense that now, not only Red River Planning, but also the province has been given notice that these lands are no longer to be used and designated as for the purposes that they were originally, so that it allows us to re-examine other lands that should be appropriately designated. And it puts to rest that argument that's been put out there that there's an abundant amount of industrial lands available in the RM. This report helps to argue against that. I think at the end of the day, once this goes to Red River Planning, I'm recommending that I show up at Red River Planning Board and give this as a clear indication to the board members there as to what the intent of council is. And then our expectation is for Red River to do it, and if Red River doesn't do it, then we'll do it.
Perfect.
But if we have this as a designation and we have this as information, that should save the RM some money, because we shouldn't have to do this. It should be done as part of the overall, and during that time, if those lands need to be changed, that can come forward as a development or a zoning change as necessary.
okay, anything else on this development plan amendment?
Then, Madam Mayor, I have a resolution for this.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but I don't want this to keep dragging on, like, sooner the better.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so there is a resolution that Deepak is going to read for us.
Whereas the Red River Planning District is working on updating the zoning bylaw and the development plan, and whereas that the preferred area to have more industrial land would be in the Lockport area near the industrial park, and therefore be it resolved that council requests the Red River Planning District undertake a study to provide information on the different types of zoning to decrease the industrial lands at the CIL Road and Henderson Highway location, and further be it resolved that the new industrial lands be designated near the industrial park in Lockport.
Okay, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Sutherland seconds. Any further discussion on this subject?
Dave's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Councillor Horbus. Is he voting?
No, he's just voting.
Okay, no further comments. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Red River Planning District enforcement procedures.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tyler's here for this if there's any questions. This was, there was some discussions with Red River Planning on the enforcement procedures associated with zoning and bylaw enforcement on the part of Red River Planning. Because of our general enforcement bylaw, they're able to utilize our general enforcement bylaw in order to collect outstanding fines and penalties that might be related with that. In the past, that's been difficult for them. So they work closely with our bylaw enforcement or protective services officer, and a report has been put forward that says that they can utilize, because of the general enforcement bylaw, which we passed many years ago, that gave us this ability, we can now utilize Red River Planning. The critical point on this that I need council to understand as well is that just by virtue of giving this enforcement authority or this ability to collect on our taxes does not mean that it still doesn't come through council for review. So the procedures will be established and made sure that anything that gets put on the taxes of any of our residents is first brought forward to council so that they agree that these fees and penalties can be put on to the taxes. Similar to what we can do with our own bylaw enforcement, which also comes forward to council for approval in advance of that.
Questions or comments?
Okay.
Okay, I believe that there is a resolution.
Whereas the Red River Planning District is currently responsible for enforcement activities with respect to planning bylaws within the rural municipality of St. Clements, and whereas it would be expedient and in the public's interest for RPD to ensure that all enforcement options are available pursuant to the municipality's General Enforcement Bylaw 8 of 2020, including the ability to add all unpaid enforcement costs to the tax roll. And whereas before moving forward in remediation, the RPD obtains a quote for cleanup with estimated costs and prepare a report to council, and therefore be it resolved that in accordance with clause 15.2b of the Planning Act, council authorizes and delegates authority to the Red River Planning District to utilize the bylaw when enforcing planning bylaws within the municipality.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, second. Councillor Strang. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Dave.
Councillor Harpus, did you have a question?
Okay, any further questions or comments? I have a mover, I have a seconder. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, next on the agenda is the Next Generation 9/11 Authority Service Agreement.
So this is a service agreement with Bell Canada for 911 services. To be very, very clear, this is a non-modifiable agreement and a standard agreement, but requires council approval. This is right across the country, so since it is not modifiable, they are looking at doing electronic signatures as we move forward, but we'll bring it forward to council and we'll be signing the new 911 agreement. And we're looking for council's authority on a non-modifiable agreement.
Okay, we got a resolution. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
So, has Bell taken this over from the city of Brandon 911 call center? Because that's who we used to have 911 agreements with. Okay.
I think that's the case here.
Okay, anybody else have anything? I believe we have a resolution for this one.
Resolve the Next Generation 911 Authority Service Agreement between the Arm of St. Clements and Bell Canada be accepted, and the mayor and CAO be authorized to sign and seal same.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Galante, Councillor Horvath seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, 6.7, snow clearing.
So this is in dealing, Councillor Strang had requested to put this on, and a letter from the residents has been provided regarding snow clearing and the issues around Wally Road and basically snow drifting. And I think the council has read it, and we can, Kevin's here as well as I'm here to address any questions.
Madam Mayor,
Go ahead.
if I may speak.
Go ahead.
Before we get started, I saw this letter that Sandra had sent, and I just jotted down a few things, and I think it's important when we get letters like this from our ratepayers, because it really helps us in trying to improve services and get better sometimes at what we do, right? When ratepayers call in with these items. And in this particular case, when I read through it, there were a number of things in here that stuck out to me that, in my personal view, I think we could get better on, could improve on. And it's not to be critical. I'm not being critical of anybody. I'm just bringing up some comments that I see in here that we could probably improve on. And I think as a municipal service, I think that's important. We always look for things that we can improve on. And one of them is, when I first read it, was these people have been here for 22 years, so it's an issue that's been there a while. So my question would be, a one-way in, one-way out road, should we not have known about that road during a wind event or a snow event? Should that not have been a road that we were quite familiar with? The other one I saw here was, when they made the call, a comment was made that we didn't know where our graders were. Now, I know a lot of municipalities have GPS on their graders, so we do know where our operators are, and we can react to a situation promptly. When I was in uniform, our trucks had GPS on them, so if we had a call, our call center would know where I was, where I could react to a situation promptly. So is that something we need to look at? Could we have GPS on our graders, that when calls like this come up, that we could react quicker? And in my mind, I'm thinking, when the call came in, let me check where some of the graders are. So when the check was made, geez, there's a grader 2.5 miles from you. A call could be made to the operator who has a cell phone. Before you leave that zone or that area, zip over to that one-way lane and go give it a quick clean. Bang, it's done. Done. Just react. It's called being dynamic. It's called moving with a situation and moving on the fly. Done. So that's, I'm getting there. If you're wondering how long I'm going to be, I'm not going to be long.
No, I just have a comment.
Oh, I thought you were wondering how.
I'll hold it.
Okay. And then the final thing that I've heard before, which is concerning, when we have a weather event, whether it be wind or snow, in my mind, it should be made clear that it's not 8 to 4:30 or 7 to 3:30 or whatever the number is.
I did talk, just so you know, I checked with the staff answering the phone regarding that point. What she was told on the phone was, she called like right at, I think it was about 4, the Public Works shop, we can't reach at that point.
Okay.
So what she was told was, the admin staff's Debbie, we can't reach past 3:30.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's not that
Good, good.
crew wasn't out, but
Awesome. That helps me because that's what I read it.
yeah,
So I'm glad.
I
thank
did
you.
clarify that, yeah, to make
Thank you,
sure.
Heather. That makes me feel better. So my point to that was, if that was the case, it shouldn't be. If we have to pay 3 hours overtime that a guy comes back at 8 instead of whatever, so be it. So anyway, those are just some of the little things. And again, it's not to be critical. It's to how we can do things. And if we don't get these kinds of things, these letters, we wouldn't know how to improve our services or get better at it. But those are my comments. And again, it's just something that stuck out to me. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, the only comment that I have is when somebody phones the office here, and I don't care what time it is, whether it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon or 3:30 in the afternoon or 10 o'clock in the morning, the staff here know that everybody is out on the road, but they don't necessarily know where everybody is, because as we know, each of the patrol operators has their own area that they look after, and you know, as you're saying, get a hold of the shop or the receptionist at the shop and see where these snowplows are. It could be done, but is it an emergency, or is it that you're just irritated because you can't go to town and have coffee?
I don't know.
That's what I kind of look at, because we know that there are a lot of residents in our municipality that have a habit of going to Selkirk every day, or, you know, and when they can't go, it's a real frustration to them. I'm not saying that we can't change the way we do things. What I'm saying is we have to be careful why we're changing.
And I agree, but I didn't read into this that someone wanted to go for coffee. I read into it as a service call that could have been done differently.
Right.
If we had the technology. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every time we get a call from a ratepayer that we gotta run to their door and help them immediately. But in this situation, I just think if it was handled in a way where the call came in and it got to the Public Works front end office there, and she said, you know what, I'll find out where they are. Just say that. And if they were GPS, then somebody could go rectify the problem before it gets to this. Right? I'm not saying it has to be perfect. I'm just saying we could probably do things a bit better.
And I'm not disagreeing with that. I think Deepak has some comments that he would like to share.
No argument that letters like this should give us an opportunity to pause and take a look and see where we can improve our services in order to address some issues. The other thing we need to take into consideration is when there's high wind scenarios, people are, the request here was to get this done immediately. If it's happening in the high winds, we could have had a truck go through there, and shortly thereafter with the high winds, it's blown over again. We have to keep that in mind, that these are dynamic situations and people are requesting this. I also read in here about comparing us to the city of Winnipeg. I can tell you that our RM was cleared faster than the city of Winnipeg. I was at home that time, during that storm, and I watched. And I'm in the middle of a road that's right across from a school, a bus route that was not plowed, that they didn't get to. So we have a large RM, we have to get to it, and there are certain challenges. How Wally Road was first created, that's why we don't allow subdivisions with only one entrance, because of these types of scenarios specifically. This one is one of those, so should it be highlighted and kept an eye on so that we can avoid, because there are some valid points about emergency access and so forth. But how dramatic that was or wasn't, I don't know. What our Public Works Coordinator as well as our Director were doing, this is a perception that's been presented by one resident from Wally Road. This isn't a bunch of letters from several people from Wally Road that we have to keep in mind. And so I have to be able to say, okay, what are we receiving, how are we reacting to it, and are we being consistent with it? Staff in the office do not have the GPS access. We can certainly look at that improving in the future, and I've talked about it. But when somebody calls in, there's an expectation. Sometimes people are upset that they want this done right away. I also know that there's, and please don't take this the wrong way, for anyone that's watching, or I think the expectation for many of the residents in the Arm of St. Clements, because of the level of service that they've been receiving, is at a lot higher than even in the city of Winnipeg for the snow clearing. I appreciate that we are in rural areas and it takes longer to, and it can be very, very troublesome to be blocked in and kept in there. But there are challenges that are faced in snowstorms that can't be predicted. So I think we need to take that in mind, and then I'll let Kevin speak to these issues.
Before Kevin speaks, I think Sandra and Scott had something, and I'm sorry that you're kind of, I think you should have started the conversation, but it didn't work out that way, so go ahead,
Dave's got a
Scott.
question too.
I'll be brief. There are a number of factors that come into play when deciding when snowplows should go out, what routes they take, and it is somewhat dynamic because it's different. It can be different with different storms. So, I mean, I'm glad that we got the letter. It gives us some feedback. And it gives us some things to look at, of what we maybe can improve. But in the end, I guess, probably the biggest thing that comes to my mind is that I'm sure there are areas in this municipality that, under certain circumstances, depending on the direction, so on and so forth, Public Works either has a list of or knows about that this corner is gonna blow in, that corner is gonna blow in, the wind's coming from the other way, this corner is gonna blow in, that corner is gonna blow in. So if it wasn't on the list, or even if it was, here's a good reminder that it needs to be on the list, that it's going to blow in under certain circumstances. And unfortunately, somehow the staff is going to have to remember that. Maybe there should be some type of a list put together so that, it doesn't get forgotten. I don't know. But I think that's my biggest takeaway from this is what can we improve? And I guess the other one is we gotta be a little concerned about that corner when we're snowplowing.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Sandra.
Okay, I actually received 2 phone calls, and I asked them both to write emails, so we could take this up in council as a concern. After listening to this one resident, I guess there's a few things I took away from it. First of all, I thought we discussed around this table that anything phoned in to our office, that they were to be getting a tracking number when it was a problem. Just any question, no, but when it was a problem, I think they were to be getting a tracking number. So I think that's the first thing because I said to her, when you called, did you get a tracking number? And she said no, and she told me the conversation, so I said to her, okay. So I said, that's first of all, because to me, when we get that tracking number, we're training our residents to, you don't want them, you want them to be phoning the office first instead of calling all of us. So to me, that tracking number is holding somebody accountable or making somebody making it more registered with the problem. So anyways, going on from there, I look at Wally Road. You guys made a good point there that maybe that's a problem road that should be addressed and looked at all the time when it is, especially with it being the in and out entrance. The other thing is the development that we've approved on Wally Road. Like, we're going to be adding more residents there too. So that's going to be another issue there, even though there is going to be another road there, but that's going to add more traffic to that area. And I guess I just look at our service level that we are putting in more developments. That's something I thought, well, bring it around the table here and have everybody have a look at it. This resident, it was her daughter that was going to university. We have a lot of people that work 7 days a week, that are going there. It's not just a Monday to Friday job that everybody has. So, and I know myself driving a car, there was days I couldn't go to work too, and I'm on a main artery. Maybe another thing I looked at is maybe Rebec Road. I don't know, can it be, since it's the main artery that connects us to the next municipality too, for our municipality down in the south end, can it be like a main thing to be kept clean all the time and sanded? Like even at the 4-way stops, there's no sand and salt there. So I don't know, there's no snow on the ground right now, but when there was at that event, I don't know. So I look at these few different things, And one of the other residents, when they made the phone call, that's the first thing they said to me, do you go shopping on the weekend? So I said, yes, I said, I actually work on the weekend. So they said, well, how come we're only getting snow clearing? And they said, our Public Works has had it pretty soft this year. I said, well, we have other jobs that Public Works are doing, that it's just not snow clearing, and then you're explaining that to them also. But no, I thought it was a good letter, and I thought, you know what, you're right, just to bring a concern to us that, you know, we are a growing municipality, and just to up the service level, and I know we do have lots of people in our area, and everybody's going down in our area, down in the south end from 44 this way, I'm gonna say 90% of the people are heading to Winnipeg, so that's where our comparison is gonna be. So, an emergency also.
Okay, thanks for that. Go ahead, Councillor Horvis, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Kevin so he can,
Yeah. One call in 22 years. When I first got on council, I talked to, I think Greg was there, I said, why don't we do this, why don't we do that? He said, we have a system. I said, why don't graders come out for the school buses first or whatever, you know, and make all these rounds. He says, it's not efficient. And the way they do it and what I see what they do now is very efficient. So, I don't know, you know, everybody's got a complaint once in a while, but other than that, I think we do a great job on clearing snow. That's all I have to say.
okay, thank you for that. Okay, if there's nothing else around the council table, I'm
So I
gonna,
just,
go ahead.
you're always gonna get people that complain. I'm not gonna go into this. I've done it, so they're doing the best job they can. There's certain roads that are, and I can name them off to you if you want, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't even have to snow. When the banks are high, they drift in. They're problem roads that we can't, we just have to deal with it. And I understand that, you know, the resident, I get it, but I don't plow down south end lots, and you have to do all the roads. You can't just pick one, bounce all over the place. It doesn't work. Just like we discussed, cool bus routes, it's not efficient. You're gonna be going all over the place, and it just doubles your time.
You get nothing done. You get nothing done.
We went through that years ago when I was working. So I know some people are gonna be cheesed off, but it's pretty hard when you get a snowfall and you gotta get the roads cleaned. And I think they're doing the best they can. And that's it.
Mayor, if I could just, before Kevin speaks.
Yeah, and I have one comment too, so.
I just want to make sure that it's clear, we do take this complaint seriously, and we will review what we can do to improve. And I think we should always encourage people to let us know what their concerns are so that we can deal with them. In the case of this one, there's many challenges. As I brought the property up on the map, as you can see, it's a very, very long road, and there is only one entrance. Now that new subdivision that's been approved will give access now to be able to go on another road, onto Church Road, to be able to avoid some of those kinds of scenarios. I think what we need to take into consideration as part of this, and this is in further communications that we're going to be developing, is basically giving our residents an understanding of the service level they receive. So if somebody phones in at 1 o'clock to expect a response or snow cleared by 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock that evening, depending on the kind of an event, may not be reasonable. In other cases, if it was an emergency, it might be very reasonable. So we need to be able to lay those kinds of figures out there and be able to say that these are our service standards. You know, we do have a service level standard right now where we attempt to try to clear all the roads within 48 hours. The Public Works works very hard to try to keep at that level. So we need to be able to communicate those service standards so that people understand this is what our end can afford. And if we want to increase that service standard, which as our community grows, we can. There'll be a cost to it, and we'll need to understand.
The only comment that I have is I get what everybody is saying around the table, and yes, there probably is room for improvement, but I always look at where I am. I'm not on a public road, I'm on a private road. And depending on which way the wind blows, my road can be done by my husband first thing in the morning, so we can all get to wherever we need to be. And by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's all blowing in again, depending on which way the wind is blowing. So you kind of have to look at some of those things too. Is it the best scenario? No, not really. But we can't be there 24/7, is all I'm gonna say. So I'm gonna hand it over to Kevin. He hasn't had an opportunity to speak on the snow clearing, so the floor is now yours, Kevin.
Okay, so I just jotted down some of you guys' points and whatnot, so I'll try and touch on the grand scheme of things. But, so this, as for Public Works, is the only call that we received that day from that snow event. That's the only thing we received. We did have a call forwarded from the front office to Public Works, to Debbie. Debbie got that message and entered that service tracker, and which is maybe why that resident didn't receive that tracking number for the service tracker. So I can see that there might have been some disconnect there. All of our equipment has GPS, every single piece. That being said, if we were looking at that level of telling where the resident, you know, like their road's gonna be cleaned within the hour, within the 2 hours, whatever that level is that you guys would be looking for. Again, if, you know, equipment breaks down, are we calling them back and saying, hey, equipment broke down, we're not gonna be able to make it to your road that day? Like, if that's gonna be a level, obviously that's gonna be a huge increase to our supervision to keep on top of those types of things. Because right now, as Deepak stated, some of our admin staff don't have access to that GPS, right? They don't know the inner workings of what's going on in the municipality that day, kind of thing, right? So, because we could be getting numerous calls, or we could be just getting the one call. As for overtime, I always push the guys to work as much as they possibly can. In this event, the reason that the south end didn't get done was our town was broken down with a failed cylinder, which we repaired, and we actually had Wally Road cleaned at 8:20 the next day. So normally we get the whole RM, like I said, done within the first day to day and a half, depending on how things go in the snow event and whatnot. But like Deepak said, within the 48 hours of that event, that's when we go out. Of course, as Scott mentioned, there's blowing snow conditions and stuff like that. Visibility is really down. It's difficult for us to get out early sometimes. I push the guys to start at 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning to try and get lots of that stuff done. And for example, the snow that we got the Wednesday, because we got the snow on the Sunday and then we got hammered again on the Wednesday, all of our crew worked over 12 hours each to get that all cleared in the timely fashion. So sometimes we get guys that will work late, sometimes they don't. I really can't control some of that. And we're juggling staff around right now with, we're losing some of our flexibility in some of our staff with some of the staff turnover, right? So trying to get that back, trying to get a lot of our equipment back into our areas, so they're, they know those roads, they don't miss those roads, etc. So Wally Road wasn't the only one that was missed on that Monday. The whole, I call it that south end section, pretty much from 44 and coming south to like west of the floodway, actually didn't get done on that day. So again, that was due to an equipment failure on that. And then of course our other equipment was still going in all their other areas. Now we could have bounced equipment out and gotten that section done, but then that means East Selkirk probably wouldn't have got done. So then we might have done a call in East Selkirk, right? So like I said, hours work, push, school bus routes we've always looked at, but like David stated, they're literally all over the place. So like we'll be high blading all over the place to try and get school bus routes, which just doesn't make sense operationally. So typically, we always try and, all the guys will get, like, the only roads that we might get done, call it the second day, will be some of the further mile roads, like, or maybe Thalberg area, which is a lot less traffic, but our heart areas, like our south end, East Selkirk, like, the Grand Array, the resort areas, all those, like, where our main populations are, those we really focus to get done in the first day, so.
Okay, anything else? Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
So I have a question. So out of all our equipment for south of 44, we only have a tandem truck that cleans snow down there, and that's it? So when that breaks down, we have absolutely nothing?
Correct. So we do have a loader that bounces around, gets our fire hauls for emergency purposes and all that. Like, they are going around, but we only have the 4 graders and 2 tandems. Every single snowfall, all that pieces of equipment go out. If there is a breakdown, we do not have another piece of equipment sitting there,
So Ward 1, I'm going to use the word now, never gets a grader ever. It's always this tandem truck, right?
Part of it, yes. So like, for example, east of 44 in Ward 1, that's all gets graded. But typically in, say, East Selkirk Village and the south end is where our tandems run. That's where they try and sand as they're plowing, but lots of times they'll come back the second day and do further sanding, because if we dump all our sand in the first snow clear, that means we're not clearing roads, we're running back and getting sand and coming all the way back when our loader's also out cleaning snow. So like, all staff is out when it comes to snow push like that, so.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
If I could
Yes, I'm gonna give you the
summarize.
last word here.
I think Kevin has explained a few things. One is that if council wishes and good questions, if we want to take a look at additional equipment, that can become part of the budget process in order. That's another service level discussion, because it's service increase with a cost. The other is, yes, when we have this kind of a failure for equipment and it doesn't get done until the next day, this was a bit of a unique event, because it did happen because of the big storm that happened on the weekend, on the Monday, Sunday and Monday, and then the Wednesday, there was a lot more loose snow, so when the winds came up, it had a much more of an impact. I know that right now, the city of Winnipeg still has not gone down residential streets. They have, since Wednesday, they waited for the snow melt, and they have not gone down any residential streets.
Well, you should be phoning your counselor.
Can I interrupt you for a
So,
second?
yeah,
I just want to make sure that was noted.
Kevin has a comment.
Yeah, so I want to give 2 more comments where our other tandem also broke down and we got it fixed, and like in the nick of time for the snow clear on Thursday. So we almost went down another tandem for that clear. So it doesn't matter how much, say if we had duplicate iron sitting all in the yard, we're still gonna have breakdowns. And we didn't have issues, calling like plowing that Thursday. You know, we never had this type of issue. As well as after hours calls, yes, our staff are working after hours, but some of our admin staff, you know, say they get home at 3:30 or 4 o'clock.
Excuse me.
We do have that 24-hour service of emergency. If there is an absolute emergency, someone's going to answer that phone, and we can redirect Public Works if needed, if we're out, so.
Scott, did you have one quick comment
Yeah.
before Deepak goes
No,
back?
it's-
Was a clarification
Okay.
question,
Mhm.
related to what's been discussed. So even if we had another tandem, we would likely need more operators too, because you've stated that everybody goes out. So it's not just an iron question, it's also an
And
operator question.
Yeah, and that was a comment I had earlier, was we had, the staff that we had previously were extremely flexible, I'll be very honest. Now we're not getting this flexible staff. I'm trying to push in a more, cross-training, making sure everyone has proper licenses, so if someone doesn't show up for work or whatever, I don't have a piece of equipment sitting there, right? So I'm trying to grow that back, and I'm struggling with that, just with the type of workforce that we have. But I'm, like I said, I'm trying to fix that, because I need the flexibility. I can't have equipment sitting because I don't have someone with a Class 3 license. So,
Yeah, I think it's important to identify flexibility.
yeah,
It's not that the staff don't want to, it's regulations that we have, that they have to have certain
yeah,
designations and ability to be able to drive that work.
yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Strang.
No, I think this has been very good discussion, and I appreciate the resident action, though I spoke to both of them. One of them only sent me an email, because I said I would like to take it to the council table for discussion. And I said I don't know if it's happening in other areas of our municipality or not, or whatever. But I think this is something us as council, and I know we speak about this too, but us communicating this to our residents and just getting the information out there and telling them that we did have a breakdown. Like, hey, it's called life too, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to somehow just come across that. And maybe if a breakdown does happen, maybe at the office here, they should be like, we've had a breakdown, right?
We don't get told that.
Yeah,
We
so
wouldn't
if
know.
the girls here at the office knew that, like, you know what, that would be okay, like,
Yeah.
and we'll get out as soon as we can. Just that information that's,
You can tell them that, yeah.
right?
That
I don't
person-
know, just to me, communication too would be, is us as, I know that's our weak thing as a council, but
Well, we have to, I think we're getting close to having somebody doing that, but I guess getting back to what was said about, letting the people know that we've had a breakdown, and I could just hear somebody saying, well, don't you have another piece of equipment you can send out? Like I could see somebody saying that.
we just say, no, they're all the pieces are up,
Yeah.
right? So,
And I don't disagree, but you know what I'm saying too, like, it's one of those things, the equipment, whether it's in your home, whether it's a piece of your equipment or even something in your kitchen that breaks, it doesn't get fixed immediately, so go ahead, Dave.
As far as equipment, like 20 years ago, maybe a little less, we had the 4 graders to look after the whole municipality, 2 to the north, 2. So we added the 2 plow trucks, which really helped big time. I guess you could always use it on one, but it's manpower and, but just saying, like, 4 graders used to have to look after the whole municipality, so we did make improvements big time.
Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
We've also got contractors, like if you're gonna be down for, 3 or 4 days,
Mhm.
contractor, right?
Yeah.
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 But yeah, exactly. Like, we're not gonna pay a contractor a retainer to be on call kind of thing, right? And they have their projects. But in the real grand scheme of things, I think it's very reasonable that we get the RM clean within a day and a half. Like, the next day by 8 o'clock, we have Wally cleaned, right? So if we wanna push further than that, that means more equipment, more guys. That's the only thing I can really see. Or we start hiring contractors every snowfall to try and do roads, but the thing is, again, that's supervision of those contractors, making sure they're not missing roads and all that kind of stuff, right? And that also comes at a cost as well, so. Versus like lots of the guys now, they know their roads, they know their areas. Like I said, we have a mix-up of staff, so I'm trying to get those guys designated back to their areas so they know them as best they can, and they're not gonna have those little misses that we do, so.
And that's more so for those working out of the East Selkirk shop, or has your staff in the
But Coney
shop?
hasn't changed.
No, I
No.
don't think so,
No.
yeah.
So, points well taken. I think it's important to keep communications. Council will indulge me, I'll use my example of, I fully understand from the perspective of the airlines why I wasn't able to fly in on this Sunday night. And, but I still had the frustration of being stuck out there, and better communication would have helped. I fully understand that. I fully understand that there's only so many flights that can land in the Winnipeg airport, and if they're all full, I'm not gonna get on one of them. But that doesn't alleviate the frustration I have when I'm there. So that level of communication, yes, we can certainly look at improving some of those. I think it's important. We'll look at it. We're looking at new ways of constantly communicating with our residents. And there will always be unique circumstances that Public Works needs to manage on an ongoing basis. Equipment failures, weather conditions changing dramatically, staff shortages, and sometimes mistakes. All of those, at the end of the day, we need to be able to respond, and I think we should prepare a response back to this resident as well.
Okay, I think we've had a lot
I
of.
just want, well, no, I think it's important, like that, the resident that phoned in, if it was related, like, if you have a breakdown for an hour, you're not gonna phone and say, well, look, we're down. But if it's gonna be maybe for the whole day, if it's related to the people on the phone, so that, if this woman knew that the equipment's broke down, well, that kind of would have answered their question. There's no equipment to do the road.
Also, if we would have known that there was a
Yeah,
breakdown
so
too, right,
that's-
because then we're getting
that
phone
might
calls
be
from residents, so.
One thing that might help if you're down for a day, but I don't know, just so
Okay,
people know.
let's see if we can't, I think we've had a lot of good discussion here, and I don't mean to cut everybody off if anybody else still has a comment.
Dave had before, just holding his hand up a few times.
Councillor Horbus, have you anything you want to add to this conversation before I close it off and we move on? No? Okay, thank you. I think we've had a lot of good conversation here, you know, things that Kevin can look at, things that council has to look at, and the way communication is done and things like that. So I think it's been a very good conversation, and I would like to close it off and move on to number 7 on our agenda, which is the accounts and finances. Go ahead.
Just while Kevin's here, question? Auditor, was it?
Sure.
Have you started cleaning ditches and creeks and such yet?
Yes, but we were behind. So with this, we didn't expect a full snowstorm and then literally melting. So our guys are out there now trying to get any soft or hot spots that we can see come up. So we haven't received any calls of flooding as of yet that I'm aware of. So
Okay, I know he said Paul's pretty much done and Springfield started today.
Thank you very much for coming in, Kevin. I think we all got some good points out of the conversation here, so
no problem.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
you'll be back for budgeting.
Hey?
Not today, no, not today.
All right.
Okay, so we're at the closed list of accounts, and if I could have the resolution, please.
Resolve council to approve the March 12, 2024 list of accounts, check numbers 24000274 to 24000348 in the amount of $629,402.39 for payment.
Can I have a move, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, Councillor Spicer seconds. Any comments or questions or queries on the list of accounts? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. 7.2, Board of Revision.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes. This is for the identification for the date for the Board of Revision. So resolve council agree to the date of November 19th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. for the Board of Revision for the 2024 assessment rolls, and if information is received in time, the added taxes under section 326 of the Municipal Act. Further be it resolved that Jeff Michi, Alan Crew, Bruce A. McDonald, and Horst Welk sit as Board Revision members for the Board of Revision being held on November 19th, 2024. And further be it resolved, Jeff Mitchie be appointed as chair and Shannon Plischke be appointed as secretary of the board with Rose Asham as the assistant secretary to the board. And further be it resolved that the non-municipal board members be paid an honorarium of $150 for each session.
Thank you for that. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Spicer, second, please. Councillor Strang, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried. Okay, the next we have on our agenda is the bylaws, but I have one more question on the accounts. I don't recall, did we get our December 31st statement yet?
December 31st statement.
Yeah, financial statement for December 31st.
We did the December 31st statement already. I'll double check.
I'll check right now.
Yeah, and if we didn't, when can we expect it?
Yeah.
Because it's hitting the end of March. Scott, you would remember, did we get our December 31 statement?
I don't know if we got the actual statement, but we did have a presentation on kind of where we thought we were ending up.
Okay.
I do remember that.
We should be here. I'll make sure that we try to get it here for the next.
Okay, thank
week.
you. Yeah, because we're gonna start budgeting and
Exactly.
I'd kind of like to see that before we
That's
start our
right.
budget process, so. Okay, so let's move on to bylaws. We have one bylaw, bylaw 3 of 2024, and that's tax increment financing for second and third reading, and I'll turn it over to Deepak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't provide this in advance, but I'll put it up right away, and which is a PowerPoint that I provided to. Now, my intent was, since I wasn't here during the last council meeting when this was brought forward, my intent was for it to just come as first reading, and then I would walk council through the details of it at the second reading. And this gave an opportunity for people to ask questions afterwards as well. So what I have is a PowerPoint, and let me just share it so that Councillor Orbis can see it as well. And what I'll do is I'll walk through the tax incremental financing and what we're looking at doing and how it works. So this is a bylaw that's being brought forward for the tax incremental financing. You've read the decision paper that was provided last month. And so what it is a mechanism. So tax incremental financing is a financing tool used by governments to promote economic development and infrastructure projects. So it's a way of looking at, is there, if not, it's one of those types of scenarios where if the infrastructure investment will promote the further economic development, because that infrastructure investment is directly promoting that further economic development, then there's an opportunity to use those taxes to pay for that infrastructure investment. So it's a way of getting ahead of it without having to raise taxes specifically. So how it works, TIF captures a portion of the increased property tax revenue generated from a specific development project and allocates it to a fund that public improvements within that same area. So it's the benefiting lands that will be benefiting from it. So as an example, a major infrastructure project like a major roadway or several roadways or anything that's being done in the public realm, not on private lands, but on public realm, can be then considered as part of a TIF. So say if the RM went ahead and did a major drainage, curb and gutter kind of scenario and did a major infrastructure roads, that would then make those lands more viable. Even doing something similar to putting in infrastructure such as sewer and water. That could be also considered as part of a TIF scenario. In some municipalities, TIFs can be used. In larger municipalities, they create TIF zones in order to promote development. So City of Winnipeg has used TIF zones in the downtown because they want to encourage development. So it's also where do you want to encourage development as a policy and how you can use those. Those TIF zones can be used then to be able to do additional service level increases and those kinds of things that you want to do as part of that. We're not looking at anything of that nature because that becomes a lot more complicated because now you're looking at operational changes. What we're recommending is mainly on the infrastructure side.
Like sidewalks and
Exactly.
transportation.
And so the tax incremental financing, as I mentioned, it does infrastructure improvements. Funds generated through the TIF are used for the infrastructure upgrades. Okay, and that can be roads, utilities, and public spaces. You can build parks and things like that if necessary. This enhances the overall quality of life for the residents and business. And the province of Manitoba has enacted legislation that allows municipalities to do it, but it also takes the risk away from the province. Manitoba's TIF framework minimizes the risk to the province. So what they're saying is, you can do a TIF, but you can only use municipal taxes, not school taxes. The province would have to then approve those school taxes. So the TIF is only the municipal portion that the municipality has control over. So I want to make sure that that's clear. Payments are made only after the taxes are collected with no upfront payment. So the advantage of that is that you're not looking to say, oh, this is what, if you determine that there's $100 million or $10 million worth of infrastructure works that you need, you don't need to find the money right away. It can be money coming in from the TIFs after the taxes are collected and then use it as it comes in. So that becomes part of that analysis that the government does. So benefits of tax incremental financing, it stimulates economic growth. That's the intent. It's always about TIFs are used. So as an example, the city of Winnipeg, the city of Fort Lauderdale, many of these types of scenarios, they use TIFs to promote. So there's a specific project they might use this as a TIF. They might locate a parcel of land and say, we're going to just get the TIF from that, and then they can use that to promote the development or something. Those things have been done in the past, but that becomes a much more complicated decision. In this case, we're creating a zone that will be looking at the incremental taxes from it to do specific projects and to identify those specific projects only.
Question on that. When does one know what value, what dollar value you have? What did you garner? What did you take in from that TIF for that first reach or that meet, or even over a year? Like when do you know what amount you have to spend? Like when does that come to?
Well, there's a lot of predictions, right? There's analysis completed saying this is what is an anticipated growth. So generally speaking, you want to put it in place before any major significant growth so that you can see that, you know, you're going from bare land to developed land, and that developed land is going to generate so much in taxes. But it's dependent on that development. If that development doesn't happen, then you don't have the money.
But if it does, you sort of have a projection of what you could take in from a
Correct.
TIF.
Yeah, you're looking at it as a projection.
Okay.
At this point. And then you have to report back, and for good governance, you should be reporting on this on a yearly basis to take a look. Where is it? And then if there's any challenges. Also, that gives you the ability to say that we've achieved our goal. And then you can stop and put the taxes back into the regular, into the municipal purse again. Okay? Go ahead, Councilor.
How would we identify the zones, or would we identify the zones as we need them, or would we go over the whole municipality and say, here's the zones, like for instance, East Selkirk? So where would the parameters be? Was that something we would do at a later date?
No, we've determined that parameter, and I've got the map showing the parameters and where it is. Usually what you do is you take a look at what kind of work you're going to be doing and the benefiting lands that will benefit from that. So that's where you can sort of get some of that. And then there's development potential. So there's two types of tax increments that you'll get. One is just the regular uplift. So let's say I'm paying $1,000 in taxes today. Tomorrow I'll get a reassessment. If there's a significant amount of infrastructure development, my land becomes more valuable, that'll have an uplift. That uplift is captured because that infrastructure had a direct impact on the value of the land and the buildings in that area. So that property value has gone up. So as an example, if I took Colville and turned it into a 6-lane highway as part of a project, Not that we're doing that.
I know, but
There'd
That
be
would-
an argument if that was good or bad.
Yeah, there would be arguments whether or not it's good or bad. But those lands that are fronting off of a major highway are a lot more valuable than lands that are not. That's an uplift, okay? So if you did major upgrades, like, if this was a gravel road and you turned it into a concrete road, there's an uplift. Because those properties are now, the real estate worth more money, and because assessment is based on assessed value, that assessed value goes up, and because that uptake from what they were paying previously in taxes goes into the tip to help justify.
okay, yeah, and I get that then, but so, how do you identify the areas? Say you're doing Colville. Now, does all of the village, all of East Selkirk contribute towards that TIF, or do you, that's what I'm saying, the boundaries, like, is it a project, say there's something going in Lockport, or will we have all these zones mapped out ahead of time? Say there's something in Lockport, now you have to have a zone where once
Exactly.
collected would come further
Yes.
into TIF.
Yeah.
I'm just like, the boundaries, I'm kind of,
The boundaries would be the best recommendation from the administration based on their benefiting lands that they feel and the potential for development on those lands based on that infrastructure. They bring that forward to council, council adopts it as part of the bylaw, and that's where it's identified. So then we know clearly which ones we're collecting from. Now, if at a later point council determines that, oh no, there's other lands that are also benefiting and are also increasing in value, and you could increase that zone at a later point.
okay, yeah, I get it now. So that's what's my question. There's not just, you can't identify, you have to go with each project, I guess.
Exactly. Yes.
That's, thank you.
Okay, so the intent is stimulating economic growth, which is encouraging private investment. So you're doing this work in order to encourage investment. Otherwise, there's no advantage of a TIF, then it's just standard capital projects that the municipalities do. It spurs job creation, business expansion, community revitalization. Those are the general principles under why TIFs are created. Strategic investment, it allows you to do strategic investment. So that's the critical point here, to do strategic investment to promote further development in areas that council and the municipality feels are in need of that investment. And there's a value for money, so if we put this in, we know that there's going to be a significant uptake on those lands. So as an example, if you have a lot of farmland in that area and then this is going to be a major thoroughfare, or you have to build a major road going to a large piece of land that's going to be developed in the future, you can say, we're going to use the TIF to be able to do that type of infrastructure. Strategic investment, it aligns to also the economic diversification goals across the province. So it's all about making sure, and that's in the provincial legislation, making sure that you align appropriately. So, implementation requirements, it has to be for a defined period. Bylaw has to be specific for duration. Council determines the length of time. You could make it 30 years. We're recommending 20. We're saying that's reasonable at this point. Area, because at the end of the day, it has to come back into the city's coffers. Area and location, so you have to, as Councillor Sutherland was asking, you have to define the area and the location within that, saying this is where, these are the specific lands we're
I
looking
guess I
at.
should have waited. Sorry.
No,
It's
no
all
problem.
explained here.
Monitoring and closure, so you have to be able to monitor, regular monitoring of the TIP progress. Once the specified date of the bylaw is reached, the TIP program ends. But it can end sooner. You have many different things that you're monitoring. You're saying, we're using a TIF to do this level of development, or this much infrastructure work. Once you've been able to achieve that, then you can say, okay, we're finished. We've achieved that, so has it been able to be collected. All municipal tax revenues from the former TIF zone are redirected. So that means, once the time is up, that means that money is then redirected back into the municipal coffers from the TIF zone. So an example would be, let's say that you said that it was going to cost $10 million, you've set up a 20-year TIF, and you say, well, to do $10 million worth of work, it's going to, we're going to borrow the money, and the TIF shall pay for the borrowing costs over 20 years, and that turns into $2 million a year. or $1 million a year, whatever it is, for the next 20 years. Then you say, well, have we generated enough taxes to generate that $1 million a year? If we have, okay, that's as much as we're going to draw upon out of the TIF on a yearly basis. Anything more that comes up is automatically going back to pay for all the other services that are still needed in the yard.
Is this like a separate account altogether?
Yeah, it goes into a separate reserve, a
It's a
separate
reserve.
account.
You're creating the.
Yeah, and we'll report on an annual basis.
So potentially, when could we start across the road here if these guys have come in like they have in the last little while? Like when would we start looking at that as a projection of what we could bring in? Or if we
As
haven't
soon
already?
as we can get some indication as to the dates that they're completing, then we would do the analysis, saying, okay, they're gonna be finished 50% by next year. Next year, their taxes are projected to go this much.
Okay.
The following year, they're projected to go this much. So this is then, it comes into that interim financing. How do we do that? If we're gonna do 10, are we gonna spread the work over those 20 years and do it a piece at a time as the money's coming in? Or are we gonna borrow it and do it? And how much are we gonna borrow? And when does that borrowing start?
And pay it back when the money comes in.
With the money, as the money's coming in. And then if we have to take it from somewhere else, let's say we pull it out of a reserve, all that will come later. Initial thing is, the most important thing is first establish the TIF zone, then you start doing that level of analysis. We're expending dollars right now to do analysis on what the costs are. We're doing design works. Then we'll determine what works we really want to get done. Remember, we said do the design work to go all the way up to Ferry Road. But we may not choose to do that for another 10 years for the second phase. We could build it into phases. So if we do it in phases, then we say, okay, what do we need for phase 1? And then when you've achieved the ability of phase 1, then you can have the analysis and a dialogue, say, do we stop here? That's when council can stop a TIF at any point in time that they want. What it is something established for them to be able to have a funding mechanism to do certain works without impacting the entire mill rate. Okay, so other implementation consideration, transparent for a process. Establish a clear and formal application package and approval process. Communicate the TIF requirements and report and outcomes and transparently. Collaborate with the province, work closely. We're going to be working closely with the province to identify it because we're also working on provincial roads in this case. Foster long-term strategic planning for the mutual interest for both sides. We're demonstrating the value. Ensure the TIF project demonstrates clear value to the local community. There's a clear value for safety and access. Align TIF with provincial economic development strategies. Those would all be determined as part of it. St. Clements, we have an opportunity. So the first is describing a little bit about the TIF. Present development in East Selkirk is occurring because of the present development and the recent developments and requests for new development that's coming in. It makes sense that in East Selkirk there's a need for some additional municipal services such as roads, sidewalks, and other amenities. And the growth in the community necessitates a proactive planning approach. We're seeing that. We're seeing developments come in. We're seeing future developments that are coming in. We're seeing expansion of existing development. We're also seeing additional changes that council has identified in East Selkirk. We want to see more seniors housing. We want to see daycares been built here, the schools, the rec centers, all these things are beginning, and as we're building, the community is getting larger. We also know that there's development happening in Selkirk with the plant for glass or the solar glass, solar panels. People are going to be needing to live somewhere. This is illogical. There'll be an uptake of need, and we need to plan for that. So this is what this will allow you to do some of that level of planning. So you can do that planning too. So you can prepare these lands and these things so that you can accommodate that type of development. So that requires that level of proactive planning that we need to do to see East Selkirk grow. And as East Selkirk begins to grow, and as amenities, we're a growing community all throughout this RM, what's happening is we need to start rethinking of what kind of services and what kind of infrastructure we have today, because we're gonna have to change it. It's natural. It's natural growth. Oops. So with that, we're recommending implement a TIF bylaw for East Selkirk, which is what we brought forward today. Create a tax incremental financing bylaw. Establish a new reserve fund, which we will do as part of our budget process for the purposes of supporting the creation of the required municipal services. And we'll identify those municipal services. We'll get the report. The report from Stantec is due any day now, and Public Works is reviewing the first draft, and we should be able to bring something back forward in front of council to be able to take a look at, saying these are some of the things. Then we'll start getting into some of the public discussions on this, what we're looking at doing, such as roundabouts and expansions of walkability into the community. The Municipal Act, why we have the authority to create this under Section 261, allows council to establish a TIF program in designated areas, encourage investment of the development in those areas, and the focus is redevelopment and revitalization of the existing area. That's the intent here. And so with that, this gives you a clear indication. So that's that analysis you were asking about, Councillor. So when we establish the TIF zone, that would be on this particular year, that's where the taxes freeze going into the general coffers. And so it begins to increase over time normally. Now, this is just a diagram. It could increase in steps depending on how development occurs. Okay? So it just gives you an idea that all that incremental value over the 20 years of tax increases, whether there were large steps in it or just natural growth, all goes into that TIF. That's that analysis you say, based on that level of growth, this is what we can do. With that, then you do it. Now, at any point in time, if you've achieved that, let's say that angle is at a much higher level, we have larger steps, you could stop in year 10, year 15, or year 5, say we've achieved our goal for the kind of infrastructure we were going to do. Then all that becomes part of post-TIF taxes that are benefiting the whole community at large.
So is that something we review every year in
Correct.
budget time, that you
Yes.
bring it back and say, hey,
Yes.
so that's when you can
That's-
say, okay, it's gonna decrease to 10 years now because we've had lots of development here that is
Exactly.
building it, okay.
So we would report back on a yearly basis. Okay? And so the green is, that's why you do TIFs. Because if not for the TIF, this wouldn't have occurred. That's the intent here. Because you know that if you get increased traffic, you have to improve roads in order to accommodate those. Now, which comes first, the road or the traffic? That's always the big question. Okay. So, recommendations. Designate a TIF zone. Define a specific area within East Selkirk. All incremental municipal taxes generated in this zone contribute to the TIF reserve fund. Use the TIF reserve fund for construction or maintenance of the municipal services. We're saying construction, we're not going to be using it for, not recommending at this point, but you could. Rehabilitation of the infrastructure, that's what we're looking at, and utilities if necessary. So as an example, you have to move your curb stops from the bottom of a ditch. It's a significant project, you didn't have it, now you can do that. Planning expenses, if you had to do some planning, as I mentioned, we're looking at growth, and you'll see that when you look. Land acquisition, so a TIF also allows you to acquire land for the purposes of doing this. So, perfect example, we had to acquire land, which council can do anyways, it's just that you can allocate those costs into the TIF. So as a perfect example, we acquired land in order to accommodate traffic improvements in the future.
Can we do that, though?
Not after the fact.
No, the bylaw wasn't in place.
No, not after the fact. Other community benefiting matters determined by council. So, you do this, you spur significant growth. You may say, well, because of this significant growth, we have to add more trails or something, or you have to do something else, or you have to do better lighting in the municipality, in the area that because of the amount of people that are living there, just for the foot traffic kind of stuff. So East Selkirk tax increment and financing bylaw has been brought forward. It's to create on eligible properties to encourage and assist in the development of the properties in East Selkirk. It's to create a financing mechanism that allows the RM to use the future increases in property tax revenues generated by the new development as a tool for fund construction. That's what the report mentions, and road areas where development is expected to occur. So we're doing upgrades to roads and so forth where development is expected to occur. So what does the bylaw tell us? It says the tax financing shall be utilized to overcome existing barriers that hinder development and to create Covell Road as a main street within the rural municipality of St. Clements. You've already done planning well before I came here that has identified Covell as your main street. It's your main street for this community. Now we need to do the upgrades to that main street to make it a main street. As I mentioned many a time, Eaton Avenue on Selkirk, at one point in time, was just a little road before it became Eaton Avenue as a main thoroughfare accessing through there. And you know, you might have had a highway through there, and even those highways, they had to go through a series of upgrades. That's what we're looking at. This is that level of incremental moving from hamlet to a village to a town to a city kind of scenario. A tax increment financing zone is hereby designated, which is what it does. It identifies which consists of the properties located within the areas described in the community of East Selkirk in the map attached to the bylaw and Schedule A. Along with that, it also provides Schedule B, which is all the roll numbers that are in there. And we'll have to update those roll numbers as time goes to make sure. The amount of the base year municipal realty property taxes has been established, saying this is what it is for 2023, $276,773.76. So that's your base. And then anything above that base is what you're collecting.
Go ahead, Scott.
The roll numbers are scheduled to the bylaw, so you can update those at any time you want to redo the bylaw, right?
Correct.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And within the community, Selkirk with respect to the 2023 roll. So that's what we're using. Beginning 2024, the CAO shall ensure that 100% of the incremental taxes, that's what it says, will be put into a separate reserve fund and a community revitalization reserve. That's what will be established. The funds for the East Selkirk community, I had some time to do that because we don't collect taxes till October. Right now, we've established the TIF zone so we can get all that done. The funds of the East Selkirk Community Revitalization Reserve shall be expended on construction or maintenance of municipal services, just as it gives you the greatest flexibility. We'll obviously lay that out as part of our program. The bylaw shall come into force and effect the day that it's passed. So that means from now on, any new lands that are coming in, so that are increasing, we'll have that opportunity, and it terminates in 20 years from now in 2044. Hopefully I'm still around to watch it terminate. I mean, alive, not necessarily working for the RM.
Right there,
And so the map, as discussed, is the map that we've identified that we feel that are direct lands that are benefiting. There was some question whether these lands here to the further south would be benefiting or not. Felt not at this point, and there wasn't really a lot of development potential there anyways. So these are lands that are going to be relatively staying static, so no use identifying it. But because of the main road being done here and the possibilities of the expansion of another road down there and future development of other lands, there's an opportunity. Obviously, as we go north, we can certainly add those lands in there if necessary. But we're feeling these are the right lands at this point that kind of identify where there's sort of possible imminent development, if not for this infrastructure that we're looking at doing. And specifically what we're looking to do is upgrade Covell. as one of our major thoroughfares, along with proper sidewalks, maybe even go to a curb and gutter, have a phased approach. Those are some of the things we're gonna learn.
I have a question. You said that lands can be added,
Correct.
so do you need another bylaw? Like, I'm
We
looking
would have
at
to
the
update
most,
the TIF bylaw.
okay, I'm looking at this most northerly piece.
Mhm.
Like, there's a lot of land to the north there that at some point could be included.
Exactly,
So you would just amend this bylaw then?
yes.
Okay.
Also took a look at the zoning and said which ones were reasonably going to be done now. You know, and some of those other lands, they still need to have development plan amendments and other things that would have an impact on them being done within the next 20 years. What we're looking for is lands that are relatively easy, and this would create orderly development, going from basically south to north as we move. Now, there's one large piece of land that's out there that's owned by the RM, that's been discussed that that might be a good future development opportunity for someone that was going to, if we were to sell it, so we want to make sure we get the uptake on that for sure. Okay, so that's my general description of the TIF bylaw that's been brought forward, so that council has a good understanding of it. So I'm open for any additional questions or comments before I put forward the resolution to council.
I have one, not specific to this though, but if we decided that we wanted to do a TIF zone, Lockport area or the south part of the municipality, we would have to do another bylaw for that area.
Yes.
Just
Each
asking.
TIF zone would have to be established by bylaw.
Okay.
And if council wishes, you have copies of the bylaw, if you wish to make any amendments that you think should be recommended, now's a good time to bring those up as well, because then we can add those in.
Go ahead, Scott.
I have one. And it's the last section of the bylaw.
And let me just make sure Councillor Corbis can see it. Okay, the last section of the bylaw.
Sorry, yeah, there we go. So under number 10,
Yeah,
I'd like to add some wording to the end of it,
sure.
unless repealed by council.
Okay. Which gives the opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, that if council feels that they have met their target, they can repeal the bylaw.
I'm just proposing this because, not to preclude anyone from being here 10 years from now, but everybody in this room may not be here 10 years from now. So, you know, I guess it's just another reminder to future councils that it doesn't have to be in place until 2044. If we meet the target.
So if council wishes, we can certainly make that amendment, and we'll make that amendment as part of it.
Go ahead, Councillor Bazar.
So if you're borrowing them, this isn't, not the same as an adventure, this is just straight up loan.
Well, here, okay, this is the way I understand it, unless.
Go ahead.
Okay, so let's assume, let's pull a number. Okay, so let's assume that, including borrowing, you're gonna borrow $10 million. So you would likely do that over a 20-year time period. Remember that you're taking whatever is expanded in tax revenue and putting it into a reserve. So once you've borrowed that money, you know exactly how much money you need, because it's in your debenture schedule. Every one of them has a schedule, so you know exactly how much money you need. So I'm using best case scenario. So best case scenario, in 12 years, you've got all the money you need sitting in that reserve to make all of those payments. Okay? So then that's when the opportunity would come that you could repeal this bylaw, and then, because you've got the money that you created the bylaw for.
You achieved your goal.
The goal is there. So if you've met your goal, then repeal the bylaw and the TIF is no longer in place.
But if you've taken out a debenture, we don't pay them off early, we take them.
No, but you've got money sitting in your reserve account to make those payments till it's paid off.
Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about,
Yeah.
but you still don't pay it off early.
No,
Okay.
you can't pay off a debenture
Okay.
early. You have a schedule of payments that you have to make.
So, everything Councillor Spicer said is correct. Along with that is you can repeal the bylaw, say, let's say the debenture is $200,000 to pay off. You say that now, because of the uptake in 4 years, the uptake in taxes have gone up, so it works just like an LID. At that point, you can say, that's it, that's as much as we're gonna take out of this bylaw. Everything else goes back into the regular coffers, and for the next 20 years, that's where that, it'll just be a flow through.
Yeah.
So that can be done as well. The advantage is there's lots of things that you have that you don't get debentures for, that you don't borrow for, like a planning study, or some of those other things that you may want to do that you don't want to borrow, because you don't want to put 20 years borrowing against something that's not benefiting you for 20 years, like it's not an asset. And so that's where this can be used, the reserve can be used to cover those costs, because that's direct cash to capital, kind of, best words I could use, but not really cash to capital, but cash to operating.
I have one. If we go to the map, the outline of the properties, I guess I'm looking at a specific property here just to the north of where the line is.
Just hang on, let me just make
Yeah.
sure that Councilor Barbers can see it. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we go to the biggest parcel, to the north end of it,
Yes.
you'll see there's a cul-de-sac just to the north that's outside of the area. And if we just go a little further up, there's a large piece of property fronting on the river that has river frontage that at some point in time, over the next number of years, could be sold. So could we move that TIF line, or should we do it now if council so wishes?
Council so wishes, we should do it now.
Yeah.
Which cul-de-sac are you
I
talking
was
about?
just gonna ask that.
Like when I'm zooming in on this, let me zoom in a little
Just
closer.
to the north of where, oh, you're almost losing it. It's right
It's
at the top.
It's right
Yeah.
along the river there,
There. Just move your cursor up a little. Where is your cursor?
Yeah, that's the new one we just.
The left north side of
The
the.
left north side, so
Yeah.
up here.
No,
No,
on the
over.
river side.
On
At
the
the,
river.
I'm gonna
Riverside.
say at
The
the
Red
end of
River.
Sugar Island. At the end, because that's the creek, that's Cook's Creek.
Now go on the other side.
Go on the other side
Oh,
of the
that
river.
cul-de-sac?
That one, yeah. So the property, where that cul-de-sac is, there's a little road going towards the creek.
This
And-
one?
Yes, and there's that bigger piece of property that fronts on the river, like that's got river access.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking that at some point in time, that could be developed.
Sure, we could certainly look at modifying that. So what we could do is just do second reading and then make those changes, and we'll bring it back next month or next meeting for the third reading.
Yeah, I
With the
would just
updated
move a
changes.
straight line, like I would just move this line to be straight right through.
Just follow
here.
this up to maybe up here and then just right across here.
Well, where that road is, that little road going in, just north of the cul-de-sac, I would just
Sure.
draw that line right straight there.
Yeah, we'll follow there or just a little further north, just wherever we can, and just right across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking about that piece of property, like it could
Mhm.
at some point in time be developed, because I know there's been talk talk over the years of developing that property.
Is that the property we own?
Here's the parcel we own
The old
beside it.
marina, yeah,
We own the parcel beside it, I think this one right
the
here.
old marina's property.
Yeah, that's the
Oh,
old.
Marina Best, okay.
Yeah, so,
Okay, certainly, we can certainly look at putting that in there and running a line across.
Prime.
yeah, and I mean, if it's not included now,
Mhm.
if somebody, and if this is for that number of years, it should be included now.
Definitely.
Sorry for throwing a wrench into it for you.
That's not a problem, not a problem at all. We'll make those changes as part of this.
But
So any,
should we just leave second and third reading then? or
we
do you
could
wanna
leave
do-
second and third reading till then, yeah.
And maybe just note in the minutes or whatever that there were some amendments brought forward, just so people know that,
And if anybody, there'll be another opportunity if anybody wants to show up.
right.
Okay, so we'll move on to communication for information if there's no further questions. Is there any additional questions?
I think Deepak said we'll just leave second and third reading till the next meeting and just make a note in the minutes that it was held over due to some changes.
Some amendments.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, perfect, thank you. Much appreciated.
we could do second and third reading with those amendments, but we'll hold that,
Yeah,
just so everybody can see.
well, and then next time when it comes back, the map will be right in case some residents are looking at that.
Yes.
Then you'll have the correct map. Okay, communications for information. Is there anything that anybody wants to bring forward there?
Flood outlook was low to moderate, now it's moderate.
I was gonna say, one of the things, and I'll report that in mind, that you find that our provincial government does not, they don't monitor it like down in the US. They're monitoring it daily of everything. Up here is like a week to 2 weeks thing, that then they're coming up with a report for us. So yes, that was one thing that I thought, that's probably changing for us also.
Yes. They are beginning regular meetings again.
Okay.
And so administratively, we have people, most of the time myself, that sit in on these meetings. And the police gets regular updates. They are monitoring it daily, and the weekly they're providing updates. But this is the first, and this year's obviously been sort of a unique year, like how warm and less of an issue it's going to be, hopefully.
Okay, if there's nothing there, then I guess we are at the council reports. And seeing as Councillor Horbis is on Zoom with us, do you want to do your council report first, and then I'll go around the room, David? Yeah, he is.
Councillor Horbis,
Oh, there he is.
would you like to do the council report first? You have to unmute.
Is he talking to himself?
No, see, we just walked in. Maybe we'll come back to this.
Yeah, I'll come back to him. Okay, I'll start then with Councillor Boulanger.
Mine's pretty easy, Madam Chair. I was away, so I don't have anything to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Strain, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, I only have 2 things to report. February 28th, I attended the Red River Basin Commission, our North Chapter meeting. We had 4 presentations. One of them was J.D. Debkin. He's the MLA for the area. He's an NDP. He will be joining us for the Fish Gala dinner also. With more provincial representatives. We did have Paige Cowell from Prairie Ecosystem. Actually from from Ducks Unlimited, and she spoke on the prairie ecosystem, croplands. I found her presentation maybe a little bit too numbers and very scientific, interesting, but I think it's just something for us as a board on the North Chapter just to keep in mind, even though it's something we can use in all municipalities. It's just something that, how much are you gonna take back of it with some of these guest speakers that we have? Ted Priester, the executive director, and actually I found his very interesting, his presentation that he did. He ran over a lot of stuff about long-term flooding solutions, different reports that they're coming out in the US, because of course they get all this granting money. Red River Basin has been given $33 million in grant money. My thing with Ted all the time is I say, how much or how can you bring it across the border to get it into Manitoba? So he is working on it, but he says he has to be very particular that monies are spent down in the US, but he is trying to adapt it in some way to that it does consist of the whole Red River Basin. And then Charlie, our chair, he commented on just different things of the Fish Gala coming up, and at this time I think there were 50 tickets left. So hopefully it's a sellout, and I know that our municipality that we are giving for the silent auction. So I don't know if everybody here, if we have our table full or...
I'm not sure, maybe that's
That's
something we
something
could talk
yeah.
about, is if who's all going and if we have a full table or not.
Sometime. I did also attend then, the following week, I attended March 6th and 7th, our board retreat in Grand Forks. And the first day was very interesting. They had a lady from the University of North Dakota, and she went through all the generations of how to communicate to residents. So she said everything from having newsletters come out to Facebook to Instagram to just all the different ways of communicating and getting news across to people. So it was actually very, I actually asked her for information so we could send it, because I thought, well, that's one of our things that we sit and talk about as a board. I also met Dale Taves, and I did give him Deepak's contact, and he is the new Greg for the Pemmican Valley watershed, or sorry, their water co-op. So I think it's been enlightening for him coming and sitting in there and seeing all the problems that he faces, that stuff that he said that he never thought going into a water co-op, that things that should have been taken care of beforehand. But anyways,
Okay, yeah.
he said no problem, that he would love to sit down and just even go over a casual meeting and just go over things. Like, so if we did proceed, that we wouldn't run into those situations. So I asked him if I could forward, and he said yes, no problem. So, or maybe he even come to council, that we could have it for a committee poll or something, just something.
So
even for
he's
us.
reaching out to me, or?
Yeah, I gave him, and I have his too, so
Okay.
between the two. We also went over just different permits and that we need for different projects that will be happening. Ted is also trying to, well, he is working with the provincial government also in getting different different things going on. The big thing is health of the soil, and that was one of the project, or the main theme for the conference that they had, and that's one of the things that he's coming up here, and he wants to work with some of the farmers. And Larry was appointed as one of the Canadian members for the International Joint Commission. So we did need somebody from Canada, and they did need somebody that had the time to go down and do it. And he will be going between Washington DC and Ottawa and joining with that group. So I know that they are a very interesting, they bring great information. If you ever, after the conference, ever sit and listen to their meeting, it's actually very interesting work that they do. So he will be appointed on there for 2 years.
As part of the International Joint Commission,
Yes.
we'll be dealing with the city of Winnipeg's water.
Thank you for mentioning that. That was one of the main things that was brought up on both days was, and this is one of the things that they gave Ted as the Red River Basin to address, was the city of Winnipeg and the sewage that's going in. So he said he will be meeting with them, but that's one of the issues that were brought up both days. So
Apparently impacted me when I was away. They put in because that water line that broke under the river, they put a restricted water use throughout South Winnipeg, and I was away in Portugal at the time.
But you didn't have to water your grass.
No, didn't have to take showers to that whole either.
Oh, so you complied, no problem.
Yes, I don't know.
Anyways, then that's everything.
Okay, Dave, before you start, Dave Horbus is having trouble, and he says he's on now, so I'm gonna let him go ahead. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I have nothing to report since our last meeting.
Thank you for that. Go ahead.
Anytime.
Go ahead, Councillor Sutherland.
Sure.
Yeah, February 28th, I also attended Red River Basin North Chapter. Sanders pretty well went through that. And one thing I'd like to, the Paige Cole from Ducks Unlimited, she talked about the monitoring systems. And I often wondered, I'd seen it on Shorty's Field, for example, there was there's another one, I can't remember where it was. And I often wondered, what are these gadgets? Like it's got a whole bunch of different sensors and stuff, and that had to do with them gathering information on phosphates and soil conditions and everything. But I never knew what those things were. No.
You say that, we should actually find out from her, like, I wonder if they have them, how many are in certain municipalities or certain areas?
Yeah, there's 2 that I've seen in our municipality.
Yeah, that would be.
So I found, yeah, but Sandra went through everything else, but that's just one thing and also that Ted Priester, the ex-executive director of North Dakota, and he did mention about, which will help us, is their water retention. They're going to be spending lots of money on retention for the, so we don't get all these floodwaters at once. So that'll help us greatly whenever, apparently they have lots of money now. So found that interesting. March 7th, our meeting at Headingley, they had a guest speaker, Cassidy McGowan, and she spoke at Camp Manitou, True North Foundation. They have a camp in Headingley, which never existed. Runs along, borders along the Assiniboine River. Up to 300 people and kids a day. It's quite successful, and never knew it existed. And they've got lots of different activities for them, and it seems to be expanding. It's very successful. And they have it runs along the Assiniboine River, but they also have like a man-made lake, so they have kayaking and what have you, like water activities. Just sounds like a very successful project. I don't know how long, I don't know, maybe Debbie remembers when this was started, but
No, I don't, but it was very interesting.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah, like she had a diagram of how it follows, where it borders the Assiniboine River, and it's quite a big, it covers, I forget how many acres it covers, but it was pretty interesting, and I found good information. And that's all I have, those 2 meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Vazzarella.
I have to report.
Okay, you were with David, were you? Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. March the 7th, Red River Planning District, we had a meeting regarding our self-assessment of the board. So, just to make it quick, one of the things that came out was the possibility of having the administration of an affected municipality comment on development plan amendments. Because at this point in time, let's say you have a subdivision or something, of course it always comes to council first, so the board knows what council direction is. That doesn't happen in a development plan amendment. So, we're looking at options, ways of having at least administration send the planning board some information. A lot of the rest of it, and I'll let the mayor elaborate, was discussions of policies that we should be working on. At least that's what my notes say. And there's quite a list of them, right from, you know, some HR policies even too. So, overall, I think it was a pretty good discussion. Moving forward, we should be able to put some of those policies into place. March the 8th, we had a Gaynor Regional Library Expansion Committee meeting. Good meeting. Discussed operational costs into the future as well as capital costs for the expansion. We're still kind of in the spot of, we're still asking for some backup information for the costs, so we're transparent to our repairs. And the CAO can add to this report. But we're looking at, right now what we have is an MOU. And we're looking at having an actual agreement once, assuming that this goes forward. You know, that sets out what the ownership is, and then from an operating perspective, I think the library is looking at updating their agreement because, and the reason why the library is doing that is because, of course, the Otter is involved in operations. They aren't involved in ownership. March the 11th, we had Northeast Red Watershed District Board meeting. So once again, we're going through different programs that are available to producers. There are a number of them. There's even, if a producer uses a nitrogen inhibitor in their practices, they can get a payment through one of the programs, which I'm assuming that a lot of producers are doing that now. The big push and Warren administration now is we've got to get the word out to the producers that these programs are out there. So you can expect some type of information coming and asking to go on to the website. Because it's on their website, but they want all the municipalities to also have it. And there are some fact sheets too, and I'll send them to administration. The only other thing that's really big coming from the meeting is, and I've sent the request to administration. We are a part of the Cooks Creek Integrated Watershed Management Plan, even though we were not on the Cooks Creek board when they did it. So, I've asked administration to locate and if we could provide a copy of our engineering report for our drainage areas that we did. And the intent here is just to share information so they know what's going on, what we've been doing. The other thing that's coming up is, and I've sent this request also to administration, is they want to do a tour of the sub-district. Ours is the one I set on is the Red River District, which is kind of the south end. So I've asked if we can have a tour guide from Public Works attend, where our projected date is April the 11th. And the idea behind it is we have a brand new administration over there, like only been there a month. So we're trying to get the lay of the land, but I think it also provides us an opportunity as an RM to show, all of the works that we've done in those areas. So that, the idea is that they know that we've been updating our drainage through the years also, even though we weren't really sitting on the district. And that's about all I have, unless there's any questions.
Okay, anybody have anything? I don't have a lot, I guess pretty much everything that I've got on mine, it's been spoken on already. The only new one is on February 29th, I had a WMR/CPR meeting, and the timeline for the adoption of Plan 2050.2 was reviewed. There was a presentation made by Tom McCormack on future population projections, and I'm hoping that maybe DPAC's received that already, because it was supposed to be circulated or an invitation sent out for a meeting with the CAOs. So that's probably still in the works, but it looks as if, depending on where you are in the capital region, your population probably will rise in the next 20 years. What he did say was that economic growth drives labor requirements, and labor requirements drive population growth. He advised that the WMR population in 2021 was 874,300, and population in the WMR increased by 52,753 people in that time frame. So Jennifer then reviewed the process prior to first reading, which is slated for June 13th. And after that first reading is given, there will be public hearings that are required according to the legislation. So that's about the only one. I guess, it looks as if they've made those changes that some were requesting as far as population growth. I mean, we're not doing too bad, and I should have sent Deepak, I did take some, I have some pictures of some of the slides, so I should have shared those, but maybe I will, and we can just have a brief discussion in camera after, so. And other than that, everybody else reported on where I was. I thought I attended the Red River Basin Board meeting virtually on Thursday, and it was very interesting to see what's going on. I guess the only thing that Sandra didn't mention was that Rebecca reported on the Netley Levo Marsh project, which will be moving forward this year, they say, and hopefully that will keep on moving forward. And just on the education session that we had with RRPD, I guess there were, as Councillor Spicer suggested, there were some areas that need review, and there's some policies that need reviewing, and a couple of them that I just jotted down was succession planning policies, handling of complaints, and work at home policy. So those are probably gonna be the top priority for the board and administration to work on at the moment, so.
Is that for regular planning?
Oh, the thing that also is at ARM is they're no longer having, if you don't wear your pin, you have to pay a fine. They're having now 50-50 draws every month. And the monies that's collected from the 50-50 draws, from what I understood, it's going to be added on to what we get from the golf course and distributed among the charitable associations or organizations that we give money to at Christmas time. And that's about it.
Question.
Go ahead.
So did they lay off the sheriff then?
No, the sheriff is now selling the 50-50
Oh.
tickets.
They repurposed them.
And I don't think I have anything else, so.
He's flexible in his job.
Yeah. Go ahead, Deepak.
Well, I've been away for almost most of that period. But I can update that, yes, and I'll talk further in camera about the discussions in the library and what happened, but Councillor Spicer, I think, has elaborated on that. As to the other is that we've hired a communications manager, so she will be starting in about 2 weeks or a week and a half from now. And her name is Marissa. And we've also hired the replacement for Donna's position for our clerk in front, and she should be starting next week.
So we'll be bringing them in.
Yeah, we'll bring them in to introduce, and then we'll start getting going on the various communication things that have been lacking for the last little while. I think that's it. Then we're kind of full staff finally.
Yeah.
Taking a
But,
while.
cross my fingers, it stays that way for a
Yeah.
period of time. That's it.
For now, okay. Heather, do you have anything you want to share?
No.
Okay, and I see the next item on our agenda is going in camera, so perhaps we can move in camera and then we can break for lunch.
Resolved, council recess the regular meeting and go in camera to discuss legal and personnel issues.
Can I-
And further be resolved that all matters discussed are to remain confidential as per section 83(1)(b) of the Municipal Act.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bazarowicz, second, please. Councillor Spicer, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, carried.
Okay, let me take the camera off.
Yep.